Welcome to Unorthodox Perspectives with your host, Luke Burrows.
I think like your mission, your vision, your purpose, your passion, it's all interlinked.
And Leroy Mabonga.
Discipline is the first step to control.
Welcome back to another episode of Unorthodox Perspectives. I've got my man Leroy joining me, and today, guys, we have a guest, Jakk Gerard, joining us. Guys, I'm looking forward to this conversation. How is everyone?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. Really looking forward to this episode, and it's been, I think, a couple of months in the making. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
a couple of months. So it's good to finally be here and that. So anyway, Jakk, let's dive into it. For those who don't know who you are, if you kind of give, I don't know, 90-second kind of roundup of who you are, and then we'll dive into, the content really.
Let's get it. All right. So my name is Jakk Gerard, as Luke just said, and I have been to the gym every single day for over 1,100 days in a row. From this process, I have learned a ton, obviously, about discipline, about staying motivated, about drive, about discipline, all of these different aspects. And today we're kind of going to dive into that mindset, I think, on effectively how to kind of get past having excuses, learning how to make certain things a priority in your life, and kind of my journey and my process as to how I've managed to stay focused and inspired along this journey.
Awesome. And so the first kind of thing that I want to touch on is the why behind it. So like, even when you're approaching, so I'm sure like the idea came to you and you were like thinking about it, why the idea came to you, and then like why you decided to start it, where you were kind of like beforehand, just so kind of people understand your mindset of like beforehand, because it's, in alignment with the show, very unorthodox, very kind of out there, that many straight days in a row. So I'm just kind of interested in that.
Sure. So it's actually quite interesting. And I think, especially when you're looking at that number of like 1,100 days of doing something consecutively, it's very, very intimidating for a lot of people. And I think kind of touching on that, Luke, like the why as to how I got into this is really, really, really important, because when I started this process and when I started this journey, I was not somebody who was focused. I was not somebody who was disciplined. I was not someone who was driven. Like, I was at such a low point in my life. I'd been through a lot of hardship and adversity. So this journey began in 2017. And in that year, I suddenly and sadly lost my father. A few months after his funeral, my partner broke up with me. And in that year, I had a cancer scare and tried to take my life. So like, I had a lot going on. But I always love to preface this story kind of with that why, like all of those difficulties and all of those hardships and problems that I went through have become fuel for me, especially in those initial days or in those initial months when I started this process, to kind of use my pain as my power, to use my weakness and turn that around and make it my strength. But I mean, at this point in time, now I have many whys as to why I continue to do this. But especially in those, as I was saying, in those first few months, like it really was because I had to make a change in my life because things were very, very difficult.
Yeah. Leroy, I'll bring you in, man.
Yeah, like just listening to what you're saying there, Jakk, like it just reminded me of I was listening to an audio, just some motivational something on YouTube, and there was this one where this guy kept on saying, "Repeat after me, I can, I will, I must,"
Yeah.
and it's like, and that every time you're just literally saying how over 1,100 days, that's a lot, man, like. But you think every single day, one thing I found was that whenever I was learning something new, after the second day, you start to feel that drop of motivation, So to think, pushing past that point of like, after 20 days, you've tried it and then you're thinking, I haven't seen much result, you know, and then you drop it. It's like you're pushing past all those barriers. I don't know what you were thinking by the time you got to 365, right? But you know, it's amazing what the mind can do when you actually say, and your body follows. If you think about it, you know, your body really follows. I was also just I think I was reading something that was saying that your mind, if you were to smile when you're not happy, right? Long enough, you will end up smiling. Do you know what I mean? You will actually end up feeling that emotion of what that smile brings to you, you know, because you have said in your mind. So it's really powerful, man. I can't wait to hear more about what you went through, man. And I'm sorry to hear about your dad, you know. And
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you.
um,
I think I mean, like, I was furiously writing notes just then when you were talking, because you covered like a lot of really, really interesting points, like especially what you're talking about in terms of the speech on I can, I will, I must. Like, that's so important. Like, when I was starting off in these early days, like I didn't have high self-esteem. I didn't have confidence. I didn't have belief in myself that I could go out there into the world and, you know, get after my goals. And exactly what you're talking about in terms of, if you tell yourself that you can do something, and you and you have to really, really believe it with your heart of hearts, you can make it happen. Like in this process of continuously stepping outside of my comfort zone, I've set myself challenges like that. And one of them was running a marathon without doing any cardio training for it. So like, I signed up to run the marathon about 4 weeks prior to, the marathon taking place. But it was all a mental thing, me thinking like, all right, you know, I've been through X, Y, and Z. I've faced all of this adversity thus far. Like, I know what I can go through. Like, I've proven to myself that I can go through a lot of difficulty. So when you're talking about that mindset of really kind of putting yourself in a position where, you know, for people this year, now I was saying to Luke before we jumped onto the podcast, how I don't feel like this year, 2020, has been inherently bad. I'm a firm believer in the power of our choices. And if you are somebody who decides, I'm going to turn this year around and I'm going to make all of the bad things that have been happening thus far, an incentive for me to actually go out there and get it, and you put in the work, man, you can do incredible things. So yeah, I agree with you, Leroy.
I think for me, like, I don't know if you guys have come across the book Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Just finished reading it. Really good.
Yes. So I'm like probably halfway through, and so learning so much more about kind of habits and just everything with that, really. And obviously, you set that habit up for yourself. That's been going like for over 3 years now. I suppose like now it's just, I suppose, it's like a part of who you are. You know, like I've been. So I'm more kind of like somebody who like I like running and that. But I used to go like 3 times a week, you know, like a run. Since maybe, I think it was probably March, I've been going every day. And like now, like in the beginning, I found it like quite difficult and quite challenging. And then I moved to like the time. So I used to go like in the evening, I moved to the morning. And like when you first get up in the morning and then just like motivate yourself to like go if it's raining like it has been recently, you know, Jack, you know exactly what I'm on about. But like now I just feel like it's such like a part of kind of who I am type of thing, you know. Like even if there's a day where I'm like, I can't be bothered, I don't necessarily overthink that and I just do it, you know. Kind of got to that point where now I just do it. So I suppose like for you and creating that habit for yourself and that empowering habit is now it's just something like you do, you know, it's like a part of who you are.
Yeah, without question. And I think both of you kind of just alluded to that whole point of like commitment. Like there's a beautiful quote, and I'm definitely not gonna get it 100% right, but it says something along the lines of commitment is taking an action long after the feeling has passed when you decided to take it, right? And you know, with you making that decision to run every single day, you understand, like as I do, there's plenty of days, and people ask me all the time, like, do you not have days when you don't want to go? Like, I have days all the time when I do not want to go, but it's I guess it's having that vision beyond that point of you know, that emotion that you're experiencing at the time to push yourself outside of that. But it's also interesting that, and I really do recommend people to read Atomic Habits by James Clear, because it's a great book. But talking on that topic of this being a habit, like, it's surprisingly easy at this stage now, because there's not much willpower that's involved to get me out the door. It's about the same as me brushing my teeth or having a shower. Like, it's just a routine. And that's why I try and explain this to people all the time, that the start, as Leroy was saying, like, you know, day 2 comes around and you start to feel your motivations dipping. But if you can just get past like the first, I would say maybe like 60 days, after that point, it's really easy. The heaviest lift is always at the start.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned before, like, when you're at your lowest point, you needed to make a change. Like, do you feel like, I'm kind of really interested in that, because obviously I've been at a lowest point as well, with like anxiety and depression and everything, and realized I needed to make a change. Do you feel that there's a lot of people who do also hit their lowest point, but then they don't necessarily take the opportunity, or don't necessarily see it as an opportunity for change, if that makes sense? Like, obviously I don't know completely what's going on in other people's lives, but I've had, you know, family members, etc., that have come to me, and it seems like they're at their lowest point, but then maybe kind of going back to that point on habits, they're in such a routine, such of like with bad habits, that then they can't pull themselves out of it. So I'm kind of interested in like how then, and that's just, I suppose, like more of like your mindset, like diving deeper on like how you realize, okay, I now need to make a change, if that makes sense.
Do you know what? That's a really good question. It's for me, it wasn't like okay. Let's start with what you were talking about in terms of habits. Habits are so valuable if you're doing the right thing. They will take you to places in your life that you cannot even imagine. But if you are taking the wrong actions and you're making the wrong choices, they will destroy your life. So you have to be very intentional about, you know, the things that you're doing on a daily basis. The thing that is easy to do is also easy not to do. And so for me, I had gone through a lot. And, you know, even after the passing of my dad, that was not enough of an impetus for me to change my life. Even after my ex left me after my dad passed, that wasn't enough of an impetus for me to change my life. The cancer scare, it wasn't until like I took my life and I looked at myself, I tried to take my life and I looked myself in the mirror and I saw that I was the person and the thing that I feared the most in the world, that I was like, okay, like I no longer have a choice to as to whether or not I'm going to change. And but kind of going back now to what we were talking about previously about habits, right? When you are on that downward spiral, it only takes like a week or 2 weeks of deciding to do things that are in favor of your future self, of making like those more difficult decisions. And it doesn't need to be things that are crazy difficult, like, but just taking steps in the right direction to completely change the trajectory of your life. So if you feel like, as the listener, like you feel like you're on that downward spiral right now, as I was saying, like, know that all you have to do is make that heavy lift at the start, and then you start building momentum. So yeah,
I think it comes back to like that awareness for people, to then catch themselves, like if they're in going like down that downward spiral.
yes.
I think that's like one of the biggest things. And then having the courage to then do something different as well. Leroy, I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, man, listening to you guys, it just reminded me of a couple of things that were just popping up my head. Like, there was a poem on habit effect, or like what you were just saying, Jack, on like how, you know, that simple thing can take you to heights. I don't remember the poem word to word, but it spoke on how it takes great men, you know, just as it can keep somebody so poor. You know, that same thing, like, you know, it can build you up so good, and it can tear you down so bad. But that simple thing, like, if you do not, like, if you take it for granted, it will take you for granted in a way, you know. And it's when Luke, you're saying like about awareness, I thought about this book, this psychological book called human learning, or something along those lines. And it spoke on how there was this diagram, right, that had a spectrum of about from a non-reflective learning point of experiencing to a deeply reflective, learning. So there was 9 steps. So depending on what stage you are on the spectrum, you'd either use 2 or 3 steps if you're like a very non-reflective learner, and you'll use all 9 steps if you are a very deeply reflective, learner.
Sure.
Not necessarily deeply reflective, but like more practical, and sort of it was different. So you think these 9 steps, they come through like being aware of the situation, just analyzing it, trying to internalize it, trying to see how it works, trying to learn something of it. So it's sort of like a diagram. And then at the end, you come out whether you have learned into something new of yourself, or you've just reinforced your belief. Do you know
Interesting.
what I mean?
I do.
On who you were when you went through that experience. And like what you're saying, like how if you keep spiraling down, and what Luke is saying is that, and if you don't have now that awareness in a sense, or a certain like acceptance or open mind to actually learn something that may actually benefit you into changing into a better person, you can go on in life and always blame everything else and just keep reinforcing the fact that everything is against you. Or you can actually open your mind and learn and take experiences and actually realize maybe a week or 2 of really heavy lifting will help me move into some place better, you know? So it's interesting, man. Like what you're saying, like there's a deeply psychological factor in a lot of things that we can become as people, but we don't necessarily see the psychological factor in a lot of things because we're so engrossed within the things that we can see, we can touch, things that you can do, things that you're seeing other people do. Like we find memes of like, oh, it's an iceberg, a lot of work, commitment, and everything like that. The book of Think Rich, Grow Rich, I think. I was reading a chapter a couple of days ago. It was saying that persistence is the one thing that will. It's like you force yourself to win because you have forced whatever it is that you're going against to a point where it's like, okay, I can't keep giving you L's anymore. I can't keep giving you losses, and over that you master that. And it gave so many examples of people who had so many rejection, and it spoke on this one writer. She had like about over 30 rejections of letters, of her books and her writing, but the one break she got ended up having her even have her movies become
Yeah,
being
I think it
bought
was
by, you know what I
J.K.
mean,
Rowling. Yeah.
yeah. And you think to yourself, like, persistence, they were saying that is the way to make breaks for yourself in life. You don't wait for a break, but through you persisting, you break through, and you think you constantly are breaking through a lot of barriers when you just keep persisting in that, just that way. I remember, look, last week we spoke on like self-discipline. And you think self-discipline, I found out, was that it's not necessarily about like waking up at a certain time and like doing certain things that so that we found out that it's those things are tools, but self-discipline is being able to stay on track on becoming that better version that you saw yourself on that mirror. Do you know what I mean? When you saw yourself and then you thought, nah, let me do something differently. Those 2 weeks, the different tools you picked up in those 2 weeks may have been waking up early, going to that gym, doing those things. Those were the things that enabled you now to consistently build yourself in that discipline of self. The one discipline that you can always master is self, because no one else is like you. Nobody else can tell you how to be. So man, let me just stop talking. But yeah, man, I get what you guys are saying though. It's really like a effect of being able to be aware of the experiences you're going through and how they actually, it's like an alchemy of self. You become gold based by those experiences that you may find that they're horrible, whatever, but it's how you approach them and how you are taking them in and helping them change you into the person that you want to be, you know?
I think kind of with all of that, you're right. This has been a lot of kind of the theme of the first, what are we at, like 12 episodes now, 11, 12 episodes. It's been kind of that mastering kind of like yourself type of thing, but also that thing that we talk about a lot, or I talk about a lot, is living from like inside out. So Jack, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I feel like when we live from that place of like our values, our principles, and just becoming a better version of ourselves rather than like all of the noise around us, rather than trying to keep up with, our neighbors or our best friend, or just comparing ourselves to others. And we're just living authentically from like who we are and then bringing that out into the world. I feel like that's ultimately the way to approach life, where I think a lot of people live from like outside in. That's kind of like how I explain it, so it's like the opinions of others, it's the comparison. I think it goes into what we're talking about with the habits and everything as well, because the habits set us up to become that better version of ourselves, and I'm sure there's been days and times where maybe like I definitely, I have like, I've went into that like that more comparison mode of like, oh, they're doing this at the gym and I'm doing this, or like whatever it is. But then going back to that place of, well, I'm just focusing on like myself, right? Bettering myself. So I don't know your thoughts on that, Jack.
Without question, like that inside out model, that understanding that the things that you're thinking are going to determine the reality that you experience is so true. If you always look at life through a negative lens, then life inherently is going to be bad. Like, and that's why I'm saying, right, 2020 to me is not an inherently bad year. It's up to you. It's up to you. You decide. You get to choose whether 2020 is a good year or a bad year. There's a lot of things that have happened that have been less than optimal. I agree with you. There's a lot of things that have taken place that have not been great, but you can use all of that to your benefit, to your advantage. Are you looking at a problem and seeing it as a problem, or are you looking at it and seeing it as an opportunity to grow? So, that internal model is so important. Being able to have that level of self-awareness to watch what's going on inside of your head and be like, oh, okay, why am I thinking like that? Like, why am I looking at life from that perspective is really, really, really important. So I definitely agree with you on that 100%.
Awesome, man. And I'm kind of interested in terms of like environment as well. So I think I make the point in the book with Atomic Habits where like environment is kind of being brought up. And for me, this is kind of huge. And so with you setting up that habit for yourself and changing your life and everything, did you have to change your environment and the people you were around, talk us through that.
So that's really interesting, because I found that a very powerful part of the book as well, and it gave me a lot of realizations as to my other habits, because I have now, from this initial vehicle, this first habit, I now have a lot of habits. But in terms of this one, I guess the environment, as weird as it is to kind of try and describe it in this way, because the way that James Clear puts it across in the book is, okay, say for example, like for me, I take my supplements every single morning, or a journal every single day. It can be very easy to forget to do those things, like when you have maybe 10 habits that you're consistently doing on a daily basis. So keeping those visual cues in place, like I keep my journaling book in a very obvious place so I see it, or my sups are in a very obvious place so I see it. With regards to the gym though, it was that the environment was the day, right? So every single new day was the stimulus of, okay, I know at some point I need to go out there and get it. And because that was really like my sole focus, it was very hard for me to kind of forget about doing that. Like I'd really set that out as being my mission. But I do think that that's really, really powerful when it comes to to developing those habits of making sure that you have those visual cues in place, because sometimes you're just going to be busy, you're going to have a bad day, you're going to get lost in your thoughts. So yeah, having something around to be able to look at and remind you is useful.
And also building on environment. I think there's one part in the book, whenever I'd read other books and seen kind of this before, is in terms of like, you know, you're much more likely to be a smoker if you surround yourselves with other smokers, you know, or, you know, you're much more likely, you know, as younger people to go partying and clubbing every day if you're also hanging around with, you know, your friendship group who are doing that. So in terms of like things like that, I've got some experience with that. So I kind of went the other way. So people I used to hang around were kind of, you know, into the whole party scene. I wasn't. That was actually one of the kind of, I suppose, triggers that then led to my down point, because I was like, well, am I normal type of thing? You know, like, well, everyone's doing this and I'm not. And that was kind of a little bit of a toxic kind of environment as well, because then I was trying to build my business, you know, people I was hanging around were like, you're crazy. So I'm also in terms of like building on that environment, and obviously you diving into building like your brand, your business, etc. as well. Yeah, I'm kind of interested in your experiences with that as well.
Yeah, I completely forgot to touch on this because I know you did ask me in the last question. Sorry. This is huge. Like, this is really, really, really huge. Like, if you're a young listener, this is one of the core things that you really need to focus on. The people that you surround yourself with, it's not a joke. Like, it will dictate the way that you are as a person, who you become. There's a study that was conducted by Harvard University, and it was a meta-analysis that took place over decades. And they looked at students, you know, when they were at the university all the way up until later on in their life. And purely off of the associations of people that they were hanging around with, they could, you know, if they were to look at your closest friends and see their socioeconomic status, their level of success, yada, 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 95% of the time, just by looking at your friends, they could determine how successful you were as a person. So it's that critical, it's that crucial that you're surrounding yourself with the right people. Now, that's not necessarily to say, like, say for example, you do love partying, right? Fine, but figure out a way to make that into something useful, right? If you love partying, great. Figure out how you can then become a nightclub owner. They make a lot of money. Like, they make a ton of money.
I like that.
So there's nothing wrong with that, but you have got to surround yourself. Like for example, to me, Luke, you telling me that you're starting a business, and your friends saying that you're crazy, that's mad to me, because to me that's incredible. That's such an incredible thing to be doing, and you need to surround yourself with people who are like that. Like, if you want to, whatever it is your goal is, surround yourself with people who believe in you and who are hungry and determined to succeed and be something in life. It's so important.
100%. And I think in a way, like, it's easier than ever because we have the internet to be able to do that. You know, like 1980, like, people do they really have that kind of option? You know, like now, you know, just thinking about it, that's how I connected with you guys. You know, it's like the power of like the internet, social, and that, which gets such a bad kind of name and stick, and it's just crap. And of course, you know, there's, you know, like you say, there's the positive and the negative in everything, you know, and I think we kind of like drown out the negative stuff that is there with more positive stuff. You know, and that's something that I deeply believe. So, yeah, I think if people are kind of experiencing that, just to start to audit like the people that they're hanging around. And then I developed like the mindset of I would rather be on my own, not alone, because I think, you know, being lonely and on your own are two completely different things, but I would rather be on my own than surrounding myself with people who, you know, are kind of like that and just don't get the vision, or, you know, are just going to be negative for the sake of being negative, you know.
Yeah, and I think you really touched on a very important point there again about the power of socials, right? So I was very intentional in those early days about, I unfollowed absolutely everybody. I mean, absolutely everybody. Zero people following. And then I rebuilt, okay, these are my goals. This is the person that I'm trying to be. And I only followed people who would be role models for those specific goals. We spend so much time, you know, a lot of the time we probably spend more time in the virtual world than we do in the real world, if you're deep in how much time you're spending on your phone. So be very mindful of that type of content that you're consuming as well, what the people are that you're associating with. And the reason why this is so valuable as well is because if you are in an environment, you have unfortunately just grown up in an environment where you aren't surrounded by a lot of positive people, you can leverage social media to your benefit and have those people be a part of your life through platforms like Instagram, etc.
Yeah, I think it's always key to put yourself in a place where you can best get the best out of yourself, if that makes sense. You know, and sometimes, like, if you've got people around you, like you're saying, you were in an environment where you had a mindset of growth, you know, you were coming up with ideas. But I think I read as well somewhere where you're saying, like, sometimes people are intimidated by something that they may not bring themselves to actually think about, or may think that they cannot do it. So if you are in a group of people that see that same vision within their life, that they cannot do certain things, and then you become that one person, you're almost mocking them. So it's in a way a defense mechanism as well, to actually reaffirm to themselves that they don't have to look at life any different than the way they do. You know, they enjoy it as it is. So in a person who's, like you were saying, you were wanting to go forward, you wanted to move into a space where you're building something, it can come as a it's another barrier, I guess, like to actually doing what you want to do, or, you know, becoming who you want to become. You know, it's the same barrier that we may sometimes get from, like, our family sometimes. You know, when you want to do something new, you find yourself, you're having to now almost convince them to support you, you know, of which you sometimes you just generally want support. It depends anyway, you know, by the structure of the family and how people support you. But environment is very linked to the people, like we say, like to the people around you as well. You know, everyone around you. Like, you wanted to say something?
No, sorry, man. I was just going to quickly interrupt. Just because I feel like there's like that different kind of I don't know, like different levels coming into my mind. So what I mean by that is, I feel like you just mentioned family. That's what kind of triggered this for me. You kind of have those people who see like you're doing something new. Maybe it, you know, intimidates them, so they're just going to lash out and be negative for the sake of being negative. You know, maybe they see insecurities in themselves, or like whatever it is. But then I think, like, sometimes with family or maybe close friends or whoever it is, they might come across being a little bit negative and not fully supporting you, because it's like, especially with family, it's like that protective kind of mechanism, you know, like they want to keep you safe. You know, if there's like so much like risk involved, or like whatever it is, if that makes sense. So I feel like there's like that different kind of level with and, you know, it's just something for people to like to be mindful of. You know, if they're starting out building a business and their mum or their brother is kind of like being negative about it, are they being negative for the sake of being negative, or are they being coming across being negative because actually they maybe don't understand and want to keep you safe? And actually, in their mind, especially for older parents, you know, being brought up in a generation where, you know, it was like 9 to 5 and that's kind of it type of thing, you know. And I think like that's where, for me, I try to talk about everyone, you know, within our relationships, having that understanding of where the other person is coming from.
Definitely. And I think that's where, like, being able to differentiate between the criticism you get from people. Like, if you are not able to differentiate that this is constructive criticism and destructive criticism, then you won't be able to also look upon your own flaws to realize where you can better yourself to be better. And that's where relationships and friendship and that environment comes into play. Because when you go to those people, as much as they may not be positive in terms of, oh yeah, always just praising you up, in their negativity, is their negativity in the right place? Is it, you know, is it trying to move you into a better place yourself? You know, and so it becomes, I guess it's a very, like you were saying, it's an inside the more you start looking it from the inside, and what Jack, you're saying, like, we have that leverage of that internet, you know, this, I think it's only now people are realizing the depth of what this can do for us to be able to be here than to meet up in a coffee shop somewhere else and still create something. You know, it's something that we were not able to do 20 years ago. So it's like being able to now create an environment within yourself first, in your mind, like what Jack's saying. If you were to unfollow everyone, you know, it's almost like showing people the door out of your world, or, you know, your house, and then sort of cleaning it and making sure how many seats do you have to accommodate people, and then inviting those that are actually valuable presence in that environment. You know, you when you are using that phone, you're putting yourself in an environment still that is constructive to your environment elsewhere. You know, so it becomes a synchronized way of making sure your mind is tuned in to the right thing that helps you become what you want, you know. So I think environment, it's a very like interesting one, like, you know, it's very interesting, but it's that inside out, it's your environment within, like we always talk, like that really shapes the environment without. So the more you felt like you can't really relate to those friends, I imagine like you just like you just went your ways, you know what I mean? So yeah, like I was saying, like it's almost like that environment, it's almost like how much you connect with yourself is how much you connect with the world. The more you find from yourself, the more you can connect with the world. I mean, Jack, you, in terms of like, you think you start a business, right? When you start a business, the more you grow into that business, the more people you affect in life, right? Through that business. For example, let's put Apple, Steve Jobs. You know, it may have started very small, but the more he grew into himself as Steve Jobs, as the person who came up with Apple, the new products and everything like that, the more he found more new creation within himself, the more he connected with the world. You know, and it's almost like that in each and every single one of us. Any person who has gone through a journey that has like opened them up or awakened them to their own selves and built something on that, they've realized that the more they persisted on that, the more they actually persisted in just you're almost like a sculpture within yourself. That's how I look at my life anyway. I look at myself like a block of you know, just rock, and I'm just picking, you know, and trying to shape this thing in this lifetime that I have. You know what I mean? So there's no days that I will ever say I have become all Leroy can be, you know, because I'm still here. So that means there's still another day I can learn something new about myself. I can be more than I was yesterday. You know, somebody was saying that, a friend of mine said, what if you die when you become all that you can be in life? You know, I really deeped that, because if you think like, it may not necessarily be always the case, but if that was the case, then that would mean that is that somebody who dies at a young age, or who just dies out of nowhere, or, you know, we never know when we're going. But does that mean that that's all they could ever be? You know, it's a scary thought, because then it then pushes you to think you have to be very thankful. That's why gratitude is such an important thing for even for yourself, to just be so grateful, because you don't know how many days you have on this world. We may plan for tomorrow, we may plan for next hour, I can plan for next year, but until I wake up tomorrow, today is the only day I know that I'm living, you know? And we have to take advantage of that. I think it's that fact of like, we have woken up so many days that we now take it for granted, you know?
Yeah,
Look at,
definitely.
I've got a 2.5-year-old, you know, and you think when they wake up, they are ready for the world, man. That's it. You know, they are ready for the world. Like, what am I playing with? What am I doing? Like, they want to find out more about themselves. I can walk, I can talk, I can say A, B, C, D, I can, you know, I can write, it's all a journey, and it's so fast. from 1 to 8 to 10. It's such a fast, rapid growth process. Why does it then subside as we grow older? You know, it really does subside as we grow older, and it shouldn't be the case. But as we find ourselves in the society we live, as we find ourselves in the modern world we live, we cannot then say, that's life. No, we have to take that awareness and move ourselves into a new, different place of consciousness. Like to go 1100 days straight to the gym, like that is just another example of the magnitude of what the human mind can do and achieve, you know, when we actually put ourselves into that place. You know, I'm just going on here, man.
No worries,
But,
man.
you know, so many things are just coming into my head because I think of even effect of how they say, you know, we use about 30% of our mind, of, you know, as human beings, you know, if not less. You know, there's so many things that we have just taken a backseat on ourselves, that we're not realizing that with the advancement of technology and things that we have in the world, if we also progress within ourselves, that inner, you know, environment that we're talking about, you know, to actually place yourself in a position where a year like this, like you were saying, Jack, shouldn't be a year you say it's bad because generally it has been bad. It has to have an individual significance that is unique to your self-disciplined becoming of self, you know, and it's that staying true to your own path enables you now to take in anything that you're going through in life, everything that is going around in life, and as I said, it's an alchemy now to actually still bring you through to be that which you know you can be, because you can, you must, and you will, you know. And it's that sort of mindset, I guess. I believe in unorthodox perspectives, because we want to really dive into the different ways that we look at life and how it's not a one size fits all, but you know, but
Yeah.
it all fits into this one huge ball we call the world. We all fit in. As unique as we are, we all fit in, and there's no reason none of us should, you know, become better and find ourselves in environments that enable us to actually grow into those people. So I'll stop right there, you know, you know. But yeah, man, it's yeah, environments are key.
I mean, Jack, kind of a lot there, but what's kind of your thoughts kind of on some of the things that Leroy was talking about? And I'm also interested to also hear from you in terms of what's next as well. You know, like I feel like we've touched upon kind of a bit of like the challenge, the habit you set up for yourself, the habits like that environment and everything that can really help us to get going and maintain it. But then I'm kind of interested in that continued growth, you know, like what's next for you as well.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack from what Leroy has said, so I'm going to kind of just focus on one thing, and that's really kind of just knowledge of self. I think it's really important that you do understand who you are, and what it is that you have to offer to the world, and what it is that you're trying to cultivate in your own life. And you know, as I've got older, I've realized that purpose is something that we decide. It's not something that I think is destined. You get to choose who you want to be in this life. So, you know, when people are being negative, as you know, Luke was saying, as Leroy was saying, you need to understand that, sure, I'm going to take on whatever feedback I'm going to get, but at the end of the day, I am going to have my own resolve in what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. In terms of what's next, for me, I think the most interesting part of this process has been that, you know, as far as the gym is concerned, it's not, I don't really have any particular goals, right? It's not that I'm trying to become a PT. It's not that I'm trying to become a bodybuilder or like the world's strongest man or anything like that. It's really, as you said, Luke, is about that continual growth. This has been a vehicle for me to truly unlock and understand what it takes to grow. Doing something every single day for over 10% of my life, I understand like the level of dedication that is required. In fact, I don't. I having done this for so long, I don't. I even though I can glimpse it, I don't know still what it takes to become someone like Kobe Bryant or Elon Musk or, you know, the myth, like the people who are mythological legends in this life, people who have transcended what it means to be a human being. I look at them and it blows my mind. But having been this dedicated, I can tell you that if you do want to accomplish something, you have got to work hard. You have got to be persistent. And the more that I get from this process, the more eager I am to continue to work hard in all areas and aspects of my life to kind of see what else is possible.
For sure, man. And I mean, it kind of picks it there with the process and that you're on with the gym. And I think, interrupt if I'm wrong, it comes up in the Atomic Habit books as well, is in terms of like this mindset maybe, or this thing we get into is like always setting goals, right? So like so somebody could come to you and be like, well, Jack, what's your goal for the gym? You know, like you have to have a goal, you have to have a goal. And I feel like I'm the same with running. Like I don't really have a goal. Like if you kind of like it, like the vision or the goal is just to improve every time I go, you know, like I don't have a thing of let's run all the marathons, or, you know, let's become a runner, or one of these things. Like I do it, one, just because it's a form of exercise and a form of thing that I enjoy, along with, you know, playing football and everything, and just sports. So like, I don't even really have a goal with that. So again, in alignment with the show and Orthodox and everything, what's your kind of take on goals per se? And I kind of see the value in them in some instances, but in others, like I kind of just see the value of maybe things like we've done is just setting the habit because we want to become a better version of ourselves, you know, and just enjoying the process.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think obviously, like for both of us, the goal is in doing these activities is just to become better. That's it. Like that is my goal. Is I want to ensure every single day that by the time that I go to bed, I have done something that means that I am better than when I woke up. So that's always the goal. I do believe big time, though, that said, in terms of goal setting. Every single morning, I write down my goals. Every single week, I write out my week goals. Every single month, I write out my monthly goals. Because it's very hard. Like I say, don't set destinations, set directions, right? It's very difficult to know what it is that you're trying to accomplish and achieve in life if you haven't put it down and you haven't really thought about it. It's very easy otherwise just to kind of meander and go through life without intention. If you want to succeed, if you want to achieve greatness, you have got to be intentional. You have got to be purposeful in your actions. So I do think setting goals is very important, and I don't think that we should only do it once a year, you know, when it's January 1st. It's something at a minimum you should, you know, be doing on a monthly basis, but if possible, do it every single day.
Yeah, I kind of like in the point in the book as well where it was kind of just like about that whole, and I know the whole book's about habits, but I think right at the beginning, James Clear talks about kind of focusing on like the habits more rather than maybe the goal, you know. And I've tried to, you know, kind of include this is like you maybe have like that bigger goal that you know you want to accomplish, then actually work out the habits to accomplish that. So I think, you know, maybe sometimes people, I don't want to say like focus too much on the goal, but I don't know, like I just feel like there's something kind of there, you know, I can't really put my finger on it, if
Without
that makes
question.
sense.
Yeah, it does. I think that's, you know, I think the reason why I've been able to do this for so long and I've been so successful in maintaining this is because, you know, the goal was not that I am going to get a six pack or that I'm going to get into X shape or gain this amount of weight or whatever. Like the goal was maintain the habit. And exactly as you said, like in maintaining that habit, all of the things that I wanted were a byproduct of that. And that is why kind of looking at your habits and setting up your habits in such a way, as I was saying, like it's so powerful. I can't explain to you how important it is. Like if you can zero in on, okay, I want to create a business, I want to do X, Y, and Z. The first thing that you should be looking at is, okay, what are the actions that I need to take to make that happen? And just be consistent and be persistent with it.
For sure, man, 100%. So guys, I'm thinking if we kind of like go around and get some like final thoughts on this episode and that. Yeah, Jack, do you want, if we start with you?
Sure. I mean, yeah, I would say for me, you know, being someone who has been consistent for so long, and especially if you are, you know, in your early 20s or even, you know, before that, time is such a valuable and underrated resource. If you are consistent in doing something for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 10 years is not a long period of time. Trust me, like 10 years is not a long period of time. But if you show up and do something every single day, or even just, you know, 5 times a week for 10 years, I guarantee you that you will be successful at it. I guarantee you it's not possible for you not to succeed if you never quit. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest pieces of advice that I could give is whatever your goal is, if you just refuse to quit and you just show up, you will eventually succeed.
Awesome, man. Leroy, do you have any final thoughts in the couple of minutes we've got left?
Yeah, nah, just take care of that inner self, I guess. You know, just take care of that. I think if you put yourself in that place where you are at peace when you actually go to bed, you know, you need to go to bed with a smile on your face. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, that's you. That's where you rest. You know, so just the more you take care of yourself, I think it also will show in the things around you that things will just start like following that pattern, I guess. You know, it goes back to that 67-second rule I spoke about the other time, Luke, like that in the first 67 seconds of you deciding, it's like, okay, for example, Jack, if you're going to the gym, a day that you may think, I don't want to go to the gym. If you spend 67 seconds on that thought, that you don't want to go to the gym, after 67 seconds, it compounds. So you find more reason and more weight to that very negative thought. And the more you spend on that, it becomes, you know, just a knock-on effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, man,
taking immediate action is very important.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Awesome.
all I could say, man.
Awesome. Yeah, I think for me, is, you know, for all of our listeners, is to take kind of everything that we've shared and just kind of start whatever journey that they want to start, you know, whether that's a fitness journey, whether that's a business journey, and work out the tangible things like the habits to set up for yourself, that will help you to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish, you know. So yeah, I think that would be my final thoughts, really. Jack, where can people find you online?
To add on that, sorry, I did not to cut you off, but you just reminded me. There's a book of habits. I forgot the name now, but it spoke on how like what you just said, like having a habit. I think Jack, you exemplified it by just having that consistency with the gym, like having it as a habit that you need to fulfill. It becomes an anchor habit or a pillar habit that everything else, every other habit sort of like builds around that. So if you can find your own like habit that you know you consistently do every single day, you can be able to build better habits around that in a way. So yeah, man, that's just a thought that just came to me there, Luke. But yeah, take us away, bro.
I like that. I think there's a similar type of thing. I'm gonna have to link this book in the description, guys, so people can check it out for themselves, because
it's a good book.
Yeah, it's an awesome book. Jack, I'll hand it over to you, man. If you want to share with people where they can find you online, connect with you, learn more about what you do, yeah, all yours.
Sure. So, I mean, the best place to connect with me is on Instagram. My handle is Jakk Gerard. That's JAKK.GERARD. I mean, for me, in terms of what I talk about, I mean, I'm really just focused on uplifting people. I want to create, and I am creating a community of people who are just focused on making the most out of this life. Like, it's so easy, having been at low points and been at high points in life, to kind of just let a day be wasted. And, you know, there's so much opportunity and potential in every single day that, you know, I want to make sure that you seize it as best you can.
100%. Well, Jack, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, man.
Hey, thank you guys. All the best.
No worries. So guys, we will be back next week. Right now, I'm not sure if we have a guest or not, but either way, we will try and bring some awesome value to you. Have a great rest of your week. And yeah, see you guys next week. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Unorthodox Perspectives.
If you liked today's episode on the show, please subscribe and leave a comment below.
All relevant links for today's episode of the podcast can be found in the description, so please check them out.
And we will be back next week with another episode. Until then, have an awesome week.